Hello, everyone. Welcome to Beyond Life Paranormal Researchers podcast. I'm your host, Russell Reynolds. My guest tonight, Amanda Quill, she's stuck in traffic, so she's going to be on a little later. So I figured I'd come on, let you, audience, come on and interact with me, let you know what we got going on with Raven's Eye Paranormal. Got any questions, feel free to throw them up in chat while we wait for Amanda. So, without further ado, let's get started. I see we got 3 watching so far. Like I said, feel free to put your questions up in the chat and stop in, say hello. We'll wait for a few more people to get on and then we'll get started. She said she was close to where she's going, so it shouldn't be that long and then she'll be on. Um, hey, Greg. Thanks for coming in. I'm good. How are you? How you feeling, bud? I know you've been sick. So I'm gonna let you know what we got going on. Next weekend, us and Ravens Eye Paranormal are at an event with the Johnson County Historical Society at the Warrensburg Courthouse that was built in like 1839. We are doing a public investigation with about 20 people. It sold out the first week that it was listed, so it's gonna be a fun event. People get to investigate with us, learn what we do. We'll have some of KD's boxes there, letting people try them out and interact with stuff. We're going to do the human pendulum experiment. So, yeah, it should be a good event. Awesome, Greg. Yeah, we look forward to it. I've been holding down your Saturday spot for you. So, your Friday night spot. I'm sorry about that. Friday night after me, I've been holding down for 2 hours. Hey, Julie and Chris. How are you guys? I hope everybody's enjoying their 4th of July. Hey, Nancy, welcome in. So, what I was saying, yeah, we've got that event with Raven's Eye Paranormal next weekend at the Warrensburg Courthouse that was built in 1839. That should be a good investigation. We've got several private residents to do. September is a busy month for us. September 7th, we're in St. Joe at a Paracon with Raven's Eye Paranormal. Stephanie O'Reilly from the McIntyre Villa is going to be there. The Mysterious Mike and Sam. Several other paranormal teams will be there as well. Vendors. They are also doing a haunted object panel there where you can bring your haunted objects in and we can try to interact with whatever attached to them. I am one of the ones on the haunted object panel, so if you're going to that event, feel free to bring your haunted objects in. Let us check them out for you. Julie from Raven's Eye will be guest speaking as well there about the demonic. And then after that, we're waiting to hear on the steampunk event. I know KD and Katie will be there from Supernatural Inc. Hi, Julie Morris. Welcome in. I'm just going over some events we've got going on. And then after that, the last week in September, us and Raven's Eye Paranormal will be headed out to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania to the Seekers of the Supernatural Paracon. And we're headed out a little earlier to investigate some of Gettysburg, the battlefield, and stuff like that. We will try to go live from there if they will let us. But that's going to be a fun event. Get Haunted's going to be out there. Stephen Tango from Ghost Hunters, Ghost Brothers, a lot of the supernatural actors will be there. Um, the Nun will be there. Um, the guy that played in the original Hills Have Eyes, he also played in The Devil's Rejects, will be there. Um, Also, I think Chad Kelk is going to be there from Paranormal State. Ryan Buell will be there from Paranormal State. There'll be several vendors, psychic readers. The Warren's Occult Museum's going to be there too. From what I heard, they're bringing a lot more of the objects out. And yes, Annabelle will be there. So it'd be an exciting Paracon to go out there, especially to see my family. So, so if you guys have any questions, feel free to throw them up in the chat. And while we wait for Amanda to get stuck out of traffic. So, hey Brian, welcome in. How are you? So, we're gonna talk a little bit about some urban legends. I don't know if there's anybody from the East Coast in the chat. Have you ever heard of a place in York, Pennsylvania called Seven Gates of Hell? I'm good. Yeah, feel free to post them up in the chat if you've heard of it. If not, I'm gonna explain to you what Seven Gates of Hell is. It's actually out on, it used to be called Trout Run Road out in York, Pennsylvania. And the legend is there was an asylum that sat back in the woods and it housed the most criminally insane mental patients. And they were doing sadistic treatments on them, figuring that would help cure them. Oh, awesome. You've heard of it, Julie? And the legend is you had to pass through seven gates to actually get up to the asylum. Well, there was a doctor there that was doing some the sadistic stuff to these patients, figuring the treatment would work, and they had the head guard that lived there on the premises, and he ended up going crazy and killing this whole family. And so, a mysterious fire had broken out into the asylum, and it burnt the asylum to the ground. Hey, Kathy, welcome in. I'm just talking about Seven Gates of Hell in York, Pennsylvania. So the fire had burnt the place to the ground, and several of the patients that weren't killed in the fire had escaped to the woods. And so the legend is that they had shot and killed the patients that escaped so they wouldn't make it out into the community. Well, they say that now that you go back there, you can't make it to the seventh gate. It's called the Seven Gates of Hell, Kathy. It's in York, Pennsylvania. It's actually urban legend. I mean, there's no record stating that there was an actual asylum ever in those woods. It's just like a local urban legend. But they say you go back in the woods and you hit about the fifth gate is when the dark, evil stuff starts happening. You start seeing shadow figures and getting attacked. I don't know if it was on that one, Julie. I know there's several Seven Gates of Hell they've called. There's one in Chicago. There's all over the United States. Um, then Went back there to the 5th gate and things would mysteriously start happening. They'd get attacked. Um, One guy apparently had made it to the 7th gate, and no, Kathy, I've never been there. We had talked about it when I lived back east about going there, but when we started talking about it, getting it planned, strange things just started happening. We all started having strange nightmares and started seeing some wicked stuff in our dreams. And so we decided, hey, that was a warning. It's not safe. Don't go. And my medium friend also picked up on a bunch of stuff from there just by looking at pictures of the place. But they do have an iron gate out by the road, and they do have it posted because the kids like to go out there and check it out. And I guess they had a logging company out there that was logging it. They just up and left one day and never came back and got their equipment because of all the hauntings and stuff going on. Just up from it, there was a house that a lady had hung herself. She took her own life in it. I went in that one, Fairfield Asylum near Sandy Hook, Connecticut. Okay, yeah, I've heard of that one. Um, so what I was saying about the guy that went back there to the 7th gate, I guess he got traumatized for life. He will never speak of it. He ended up getting locked up in an asylum because of all the paranormal stuff that's happened. But like I said, there's no record of an asylum ever being there. It's just like a local urban legend tale. We've got an urban legend out here in Missouri at a cemetery that at night they hear screams coming out of it. If you see the blue light floating through the cemetery, your car won't start. They see black figures out there. And that one we did go out and we debunked. On that cemetery, we went out there to investigate to see the screams were bobcat screams because they have cattle right behind the cemetery. We did see the blue light. The blue light didn't make our car not start. Um, but paranormal stuff we've had gone on there. We ended up putting a recorder sitting on one of the headstones, and we walked to the back of the cemetery. We're doing our thing, and when we reviewed the audio, you can clearly hear somebody walk up to the headstone and shut the recorder off. And this is broad daylight. The cemetery is small enough we would have seen somebody come walking in it. So that was something we weren't able to debunk or explain. But the screams we debunked. We didn't see no shadow figures when we were out there. So, and then we've got the urban legend of Henry Slagle out here in Missouri too, as well. Some of it's fact, and some of it wasn't proven. How his wives mysteriously just vanished. One they found hanging from the mill bridge. The rest of them just mysteriously died. So the legend is that he had been murdering his wives, except for the last one he didn't murder. She lived with him. Her brother had found out that she married Mr. Slagle and that Mr. Slagle was a bad man, and he had heard the legend about him with his other wives. So the brother ended up showing up to kill Mr. Slagle. Well, Mr. Slagle got the drop on him and shot him in the back with buckshot and buried him in the road up there towards the mill and the cemetery, and they never did find where he is buried. But you do go out there at night, you will. We've caught a figure on thermal out there. We've caught did spirit box sessions out there, and we've gotten Henry Slagle, which was Slagle's son, come through. The kids go out there just for the legend of Mr. Slagle, and they go in the cemetery. Well, the lady that lives up the road, her daughter is buried in that cemetery. She had been killed by a drunk driver when she was in high school, and ended up she had her buried so she could be close by. Well, I hate to tell her, her daughter's not at rest in that cemetery. We've captured her crying endlessly, and she's not happy. We've got her on recorders doing EVP sessions. But you can't get up to the mill anymore. They've actually got that closed off. They ripped the bridge down, so they won't let anybody up there anymore. Then we've got the other urban legend of Jones Cemetery, where supposedly, being Native American myself, I don't like to call them, they're shapeshifters. They're old Navajo witch doctors. You don't say them by name because you can call them forth. Um, but there's a history of one being out there. We actually went out there to investigate that, and we seen a red-tailed hawk up and flap in a tree. So my dad walked towards it, and a red-tailed hawk will take off and fly. Well, this red-tailed hawk didn't, and just vanished. And then he got pinned up to a tree and kept getting a bruise mark on his wrist, and it made him sick. So throughout the night, we went towards the woods back there, and here's this red-tailed hawk sitting on the edge of the woods in the back, and then just disappeared. So at night, we were there doing our sessions, and we ended up hearing footsteps coming through the woods, and it sounded human. My one member went down from us towards the woods. She was back behind me within 5 seconds. So we ended up hearing something up in the upper corner of the cemetery. Walked up there, and a buddy of mine says, "Hey, Russell, wait." Look down. I was about 5 inches of getting impaled by a fence post. And then this owl let out a hoot right in front of us. So it was kind of like, get out of here. A couple of my friends went back out there, and they were snooping around during the day, and they ended up seeing a squirrel that wasn't acting right. It couldn't climb, nothing like that. And it was weird, they said. But that's some of the urban legends I know of here in Missouri. If you guys have any urban legends in your town, feel free to put them up in the chat, and I'll post them on the screen. Um, and then we got the history of Hans Mill massacre, which that's not so much an urban legend. That is actual fact that did happen. If some of you aren't familiar with the Hans Mill massacre back in the 1800s, the Mormons had a settlement back there, and they had stolen a cannon from the militia. And so the militia thought they were going to start a war. So the Livingston County militia had rode out with the sheriff, and they rode in the Hans Mill. Hey, Kimmy, how are you? Welcome in. So the militia had rode out into Hans Mill, and this was the day before Halloween. And they just started shooting all the Mormons. They didn't care if it was women, children, men. Some of the men tried to stop them and fight back. A lot of them hid in the buildings, and they just fired bullets right through the buildings. They killed about 17 of them, men, women, children, threw them down a shallow well. And the well is actually been lost. The one owner that bought it before the Mormon church owns it, they ended up uh, like a little like what goes on here about the Mormons and the militia. Yeah, right where you're at, you had the Battle of Crooked River with the Mormons. And so they found a 10-year-old boy in the blacksmith shop, and the one militia guy pulls out his pistol and puts it to the little boy's head. He's only 10 years old. The other guy says, "Hey, he's just a 10-year-old boy." And he came out and said he's going to grow up to be another Mormon, and then just ended up pulling the trigger, shot the boy, threw him down the well. Well, the well, like I said, has been lost. They had a plaque over it. The owner didn't realize that was marking well where the bodies were, so he moved the plaque and ended up moving it over by the tree. Well, my group and another paranormal group, we found the well. And hey, Donna, welcome in. Yeah, Kathy, it is a sad story on that, what happened to them. Um, but there's a spot that stays wet all year round right there at Hans Mill. We actually stumbled across it and ended up finding it. And we figured that's where the well was because kind of the layout of the map I found, it states the shallow well was out in the middle of it. But a lot of the ones that did escape, they ended up making their way down Shoal Creek, down through Hardin, Missouri, down to Lexington. Well, a lot of them were met by militia down by Lexington. And as they were crossing the Missouri River, they were getting shot. The two head Mormons escaped. They both made it. One made it to Illinois, and then the other made it up, I think, to Iowa, I believe. They caught the one brother and they lynched him. And I think Illinois, they lynched him on that. The other brother, he came back to Missouri and tried to start another Mormon settlement, and that's where the Battle of Crooked River came into play. Over in Lawson, Missouri, was a big Mormon war and battle over there. And there is a lot of residual stuff that still goes on over there. Random times at night, you'll hear gunfire, sounds like cannons going off. And that's got the history of Jesse James riding through there with his crew, headed back to Kearney to his boyhood home because that's right near there. They used to go right through Watkins Mill because the property would border Watkins. So there's no strange that the Pinkertons were probably chasing them through there. And Kathy on and the viewers here, she's actually a resident over there in Lawson. She knows about quite a bit of the history. That's who kind of filled me in on the history. And then, I mean, we've investigated out there a couple times, and we've heard gunfire 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, Jesse used to stay on her farm there back then. The family used to hide his crew out and feed them. And and then you got the urban legend of Nate. He was a black man that was accused of practicing witchcraft and voodoo, and they drug him out of his house and strung him up in the middle of the road over a bridge and hung him. And he supposedly cursed the bridge and the land that he lived on. And you run over the bridge, and it sounds like bones rattling. They say that's Nate's bones rattling on the bridge. And we drove over it, and I guess they can't keep boards on the bridge, nothing. The land that he lived on is full of rattlesnakes. And so that was another pretty sad story about Nate. But back then, you figure that's when they were against the witchcraft and practicing black magic. Uh, it was Nate Road out there in Lawson, Kathy. Your husband was telling us about it when we were out there, about the local legend of him being strung up in the middle of the road from a tree for practicing black magic and witchcraft and stuff like that. That was the local legend that your husband told us about when he took us over the bridge. But the strange part of it is when we were out there and I put in my GPS to head home, and we ended up the GPS led us in a circle, and guess where we ended up? Nate Road, over on the bridge. And we were looking for it earlier that night to go check it out because I had two team members that have never been there. So, hey, Jason, welcome in. So, we're just chit chatting about urban legends and paranormal. And like I said, anybody got any questions, feel free to put them up in the chat. I'll answer them the best of my knowledge. So yeah, my dad and I ended up on our way home and ended up finding the bridge. They had spray painted a pentagram on the road sign for the bridge, for the weight limit sign. Did he have anything to do with that old town slip up? Yeah, I think he did. I believe so. I think that's what your husband was telling me. No, Jason, never been to Goatman's Bridge. I've heard of it though. I've hear a lot of people going out there, and I've seen some videos from out there. But we've never been out there. We're so busy between the Paracons. We were just at Crypticon over last weekend for 3 days, hanging out with horror movie actors, and us and Raven's Eye Paranormal were out there. Got to meet some pretty cool actors. Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th Part 6. Leatherface from the newer Texas Chainsaw Massacres. He's the one that did the Kemper kill in the first one with the sledgehammer. Got to meet Clint Howard, Ronnie Howard's brother. Got to meet the lady from Cujo that played the mom, and Danny Pintero, the kid from Cujo. Got to meet the guy from Gremlins. Yeah, Kathy, I got to meet them. Got to meet the guy who does the voice of Scooby Doo, Shaggy. Also got to meet the cast from the movie Thanksgiving. Um, got to meet Tom Fridley, who played in Friday the 13th Part 6. He's going to be a guest on my show later coming up. I'm waiting for him to get back to me with his schedule when he's available. He's going to be a guest on my podcast. And come to find out, he's the nephew of John Travolta. His mom was actually on Happy Days. We also got to meet a lot of cool bands out there. They had several bands performing. We got to meet quite a few of them. One of the guys from The Walking Dead was out there. We got to meet the Bunny and the Blade from AEW Wrestling. They're pretty cool people. They down to earth. Um, we got to meet the other guy that played Tommy Jarvis from Friday the 13th Part 6. The lady that did the voices in Austin Powers movies. So yeah, it was a pretty cool weekend. Got to hang with some people from the Paracons that we know that were vending out there as well, and meet some other people that knew my cousins Ed and Lorraine Warren. So It was a pretty good weekend, and but we can't wait to get out to Gettysburg this year and check that out. That's gonna be a fun trip. We're planning on driving out there, so we're gonna go out early, do some investigating of the battlefield. They got a haunted object museum out there. Yeah, I was having fun out there, Nancy. Got a picture with the cosplayer Negan and Laura Croft, and then we got a picture of the Terrifier. He'd been walking around all weekend. We seen him Friday and Saturday. He had us kept looking up in the balconies for him. He was standing up. We were sitting at the one table, and he was. If you see my pictures on Facebook, I posted a reel of him. He's standing up in the balcony, and he's just staring down over people. Well, he flips over at us, saw us taking pictures of him. So Julie from Raven's Eye Paranormal, she blew him a kiss. He blew a kiss back and then squeaked his horn. But we didn't get to see him on Sunday because I wanted to get a picture with him, but he wasn't there Sunday. But he was in costume all Friday and Saturday. Clint Howard was a fun guy to talk to. Also, he was talking about Three from Hell, where with Bill Mosley. Hey, Carl, welcome in. Going to Paraguay, Scared City. Oh, cool. Nice. Who they gonna have down there? Yeah, he he was creepy. We seen a lot of creepy cosplayers. I mean, there was some walking around Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers, Jason. CJ Graham that played Jason in Friday the 13th Part 6, he was down to earth. Had a good sense of humor. He in the picture where that I got with him, he actually grabbed me with one hand and just squeezed me right next to him like Jason would somebody. And he was walking around in full costume because you could do a photo op with those guys in full costume, and he was walking around in costume. He'd go up to his hotel room, come down through the lobby in his costume, and seeing him in the full movie costume, he does look scary in it. He definitely intimidates you, that's for sure. And same with Leatherface. He another one too. He was in full costume too for photo ops. And so yeah, it was pretty good weekend at Crypticon. We had a ball meeting a bunch of people and vendors and stuff. Made some new friends and got some new followers as well while we were down there. And so yeah, if you have any more questions, feel free to throw them up in the chat. Like I said, my guest is running late. She's stuck in traffic. She's trying to get back see her kids, and she's been sitting in traffic, and she's not that far away from where she's got to go. So, but we're only gonna do an hour show tonight because I've got a meeting after this. So, Leatherface, Keith Age, Santiago, Trillo, Walking Dead, and NWA wrestlers. Okay, yeah, definitely. I'll check that out. Kathy, I know they got a Crypticon coming up in September in Minneapolis, Minnesota, because they asked us to come up there to Minnesota, but this it's in September and we're already booked up for this September, so we told them it probably wouldn't be till next year. I guess they do a paranormal panel up there in Minnesota, so they were asking us to come up and do the paranormal stuff up there, but The Warrens Paracon, Kathy, is the last weekend in September. So, oh, nice. We may have to get down to one of those sometime. I said it's been a while since I've been to Crypticon. Kathy, the Warrensburg, Missouri one. No, they're the Warrens, Ed and Lorraine Warrens Paracon, the Seekers of the Supernatural, is the Warrens Paracon, Ed and Lorraine Warrens Paracon. But the Warrensburg, Missouri courthouse event is sold out. That sold out the first week that it was listed. We uh we couldn't believe how quick it sold out, but Warrensburg doesn't usually have any paranormal stuff. Investigators come down and do events with people, so the we'll be there. Raven's Eye Paranormal will be there. Jen Durrell will be there. She'll be doing like the history part of it, of the courthouse, and then the Johnson County Historical Society is putting on the event. All the proceeds are going to the Johnson County Historical Society. Yeah, Donna, we had a real good time. Yeah, I've got pictures on my Facebook from it. Hey, Tracy Rizzo, welcome in. But yeah, the Warrensburg event sold out the first week. Oh, nice. Yeah, we were just there not too long ago. We were there with at the Get Haunted event, the Nest for Devils on the Run tour. We were there, got to investigate the prison with Nesper and get the Get Haunted crew. They had some of the artifacts from the Warrens Occult Museum out there, the Shadow Doll, the Fire Doll. They had the African fertility dolls, the demonic skull that was used in demonic rituals. They had the dinosaur from the Devil Made Me Do It case. They had the movie Annabelle doll from Annabelle Comes Home out there as well. And they ended up, oh, thanks for coming in, Tracy. But they also had these Halloween masks that were used for demonic rituals. They were used in rituals to sacrifice little kids. And the one mask, when you take pictures of it, was facing straight on. In my one picture, you can see it turned and looked at me. So these things are got something demonic attached to them. They've got the devil's sword there that was used in rituals, and the shadow doll. That's a whole different story. We were getting some responses back from her on the spirit box. We were doing a session with the shadow doll, and Julie from Raven's Eye Paranormal, she captured a picture of what's attached to the shadow doll. Very faint face right next to it inside the case. And the fire doll, that thing was just creepy as all get out. The eyes follow you with that doll. It, it had some real creepy eyes. They, I guess the story behind the the fire doll was it was in a house and the house had burnt to the ground and killed a bunch of the kids and the whole family. And the only thing that didn't burn was this doll, and this doll was sitting in the kitchen and somehow managed to turn the stove on to set the house on fire. The hands are taped on it. They don't know why when they got the doll that the hands were taped. So the Shadow Doll, I guess she shut down the whole power grid of West Monroe, Connecticut when they opened the case in the Warrens Museum. There was rituals around these parts back in the 80s and 90s. There was devil worshiping that went on out there at Rocky Hollow. We used to call it Hippie Hollow. Okay, yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah, I'm sure Lawson's got a strange history over there with a lot of stuff from what I've read in the history about it. I know with the confirmed slaves over there, they had Native American slaves there, and a lot of the battles and all that. Hi, Santa Fred of New York. Welcome in. Thank you for tuning in. We're just chit chatting. People ask me questions. We're talking about urban legends, a little bit of history, some of the events we've got going on, and some events that we were just at. But yeah, Kathy, if you ever do get out to Missouri State, yeah, it's a neat place to check out. Yeah, Donna, they are strong, and you can feel the energy off of them. They are definitely not something to take lightly. That's why Dan has built all these cases for them. The actual chair that the movie Annabelle doll was sitting in was the chair that Annabelle, the real Annabelle doll, sat in back in the 70s when Ed and Lorraine had brought her home. And they didn't know how to contain the energy then, and then they started figuring out ways to contain the energy of the Annabelle doll. And they say the stories that Annabelle had killed somebody. She didn't kill nobody. She's hurt people, but she didn't kill nobody. The one that they say was in the motorcycle accident, he didn't get killed. He broke his leg and some ribs, but he didn't get killed. The last thing he saw before his brakes failed was Annabelle. My great uncle walked above the axe yard when he worked there many years ago. Sure, you can ask a bit of metaphysical questions. I know some about that, and also if Julie's still in the chat, Julie from Raven's Eye too can answer a lot of that too. But yeah, so Annabelle, she heard a priest threw her across the room because he challenged the doll and said God's more powerful than the devil. Well, he ended up in a car accident right after he left the museum, is what the history is I've been told. But he also Dan grabs her and moves her to different cases so they can travel with her safely, and then Wade binds her to the cases with holy water, prayer. So when you actually go see these objects, they are bound by holy water and prayer, so you're safe as long as you don't touch them. You do not touch the object because you touch the object and then you're in a world of hurt with your demonic entities. Because your demonic's nothing to play around with. It can hurt you. That's what its sole purpose is to break you down, hurt you, take you out. But that's like some of the cases we do. That's what we deal with. We specialize in that and deal with that. Not many teams want to deal with something like that, but we do. We take that on. So if anybody else has any more questions, feel free to post them in the chat. I guess my guest isn't going to come on tonight. I guess she's still stuck in traffic. So we got about 15 minutes left. You have an entity haunting a home. It is for an intents and purposes considered to be a normal spirit. In other words, not anything higher or lower frequency. Hey D, welcome in. Uh, no, not all of them are basically a lot of them might have owned the house at one time or maybe owned the property that the house is built on. So to them, you are trespassing to them. You're invading their space and they don't like it. So of course they're going to do stuff to scare you to move out. And because it's like if somebody's breaking into your house, what are you going to do? You're going to want to hurt them. Hey, bro, welcome in. Yeah, or like Julie said, attach something that been brought in. But if you were to gather a group to pray to this entity, could you transform this regular entity into a different being? No, because you gotta remember, ghosts were people once too. I mean, prayer's not going to get rid of that regular entity out of the home. Eventually, a lot of them do move on. Some of them don't even realize they're dead or they've got unfinished business. Maybe they died suddenly, or it's an entity that's trapped there. I mean, if it's a good one, prayer isn't going to pray it out. Your prayer works more for your demonic. I mean, it provokes the demonic, but if your faith is strong enough, it'll help you get rid of that demonic. Like Julie says, they can be cross if they want to be, or stay if not harming you. I mean, if it's not harming you, let it stay. Not saying to get rid of it, but attempt to transform. No, it won't transform into something else. A demonic entity is brought in by past trauma, negative energy like drugs, alcohol, clutter. I mean, people that are easy targets, if you bring something, say like something that was used in a demonic ritual into your home, not realizing it, you're going to bring something demonic attached to that into your home. I mean, some people play with Ouija boards in homes and they bring something demonic if they don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to close it out properly. Like kids playing with Ouija boards in homes, they don't know how to close it out, and the parents catch them, grab the Ouija board, door is open. But I mean, you can, like Julie says, you can pray to help something cross over, but it's got to be their choice if they want to leave. If they don't want to leave, you can't force them out of their house. They're probably just they're watching over their space is what they're doing, just to make sure their space isn't getting destroyed or they're going you're tearing something out. I mean, that's like when you remodel a house and it's haunted. You are going to stir up paranormal activity because you're changing the atmosphere that they're used to, just like your residual hauntings. If you put up a wall where the door once stood where they were alive that they used to pass through, and they do it the same time every night, they're going to pass through that wall the same time, constantly like a record playing over and over again. The residual has no recollection of you. No, there's no way to juice up an entity. I mean, if you're going to provoke it, I mean, if it gets enough energy and you make it mad, I mean, it may get aggressive and attack you, but it's not going to possess you or anything, not like your demonic entities will. Now, you provoke your demonic entities, then you got something to worry about. They can come and physically hurt you. Yeah, it does happen for sure. Kathy's right. I mean, you see, like, some of these TV people going in provoking entities, and they stir it up and then they're in for a world of hurt. I mean, you can bring an entity home with you. That's what we take a risk every time we go out to an investigation and bringing something with us back home. We could bring a demonic entity home. We could bring a regular entity home with us. But if your entity is good, do some history research on your property. I mean, find out if they once lived there. Find out if that they died in a house or something. But I wouldn't juice it up. I'd show it respect. I mean, if it sometimes they just make noise. That's their way to get your attention. That's their way of communicating. Spirit has to gather energy to actually manipulate, move an object to become a full-bodied apparition. I mean, yeah, if they're bad in life, they're going to be bad in death. I mean, once an asshole, always an asshole with it. I mean, but like I said, a lot of them you're trespassing to them. That's why they do get aggressive because you're invading their space, which belongs to them, even though they don't realize it that they're gone. And so they don't realize they're gone. So they think, oh, I'm still living in the house. These people are breaking in my house. So it kind of works two ways. I don't live in a haunted house, but I was curious to see what you thought about pouring energy into an entity and what would be the result. I mean, if you're doing it to see it, I mean, I wouldn't until you know for sure what that entity is. I mean, your demonics can be pathological liars. They'll disguise themselves. But like I said, I would do some for anybody that's curious about what the question he asked, I would do your history research on your property first. Make sure it is something that lived there at one time and probably passed away in the home, doesn't realize it's gone. But like Julie said, you can cross them over if they're willing to leave. If they're not willing to leave, don't poke the bear at them. Eventually, they may go on their own. They may say, hey, there's nothing here for me. Which one, Julie? Is it that one or the one earlier? He was asking Julie if we could, is there any, there's no way to juice up, that would be this one, the current one right here. A lot of times you can go into a house and like for us, we can tell already what's there when we walk in the door, if it's good or bad. But I mean, you get malicious ones that try to act all big and bad and demonic because that's their way of trying to scare you. But if you're hearing knocks and threes, you're seeing flies congregating in one room of the house, roaches are another good indication your house is cluttered, or you're wake you got sleep paralysis, you're waking up with three scratches on your arm or bruises, don't know how they're getting there. I had a cold case and he came back for me and wanted me to set my alarms off, etc. Said he was putting me in the hospital, hurt me really bad, like he did with the girl he caused. Oh wow. Yeah, they can. They can harm you. like Julie said, don't juice up anything. Don't want to know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing. Yep. Like Greg said, you're crossing the realm, and that isn't suggested. No, it's not. Especially if you're not experienced enough to deal with this stuff, you do not want to be playing around with it. I mean, it's serious stuff. I mean, I've been scratched, I've been hit, pushed. My dad's been pushed. He's had bruises on him. He's been scratched. So, I mean, we've seen people's eyes rolling in the back of their heads, upside down crosses getting scratched into them. So it's not a game to be played with. It is real. I mean, I know I'm probably going to catch some hate mail for it, but it's true. I mean, that's what we deal with. We've seen enough of it. I mean, I've got some objects here I took out of a house that people were using for demonic rituals. So, yeah, Donna, I hear you. That's like me investigating paranormal. I won't stop. I love to do it. I love helping people. That's the main reason we've got into this field was to help people. I seen my first ghost at 6 years old. I lived in a haunted house, so I get when people. Right, yeah, scratch is nothing. Possession isn't funny at all. Partial possession is a bitch, yep. And we've seen it all, so yeah, Ethel's house was haunted. I remember that as a kid. Yeah, I yep, I remember. I remember when my dad stayed there to go deer hunt in the morning, told me some stories. Thought interesting. I thought that maybe if you were to charge the air or offer support in different ways, you could promote the normal entity to express itself in an extra normal ways. It don't always work. I mean, they don't work on cue. That's one thing. Just like if a person told you to do something that you don't know, are you going to do it? You're not because you don't know that person. You don't know what they're leading into. It's the same that goes for them as well. They don't know who you are. They don't know who you are, what you are. To them, you're like I said, you're a trespasser or you're a burglar in their house. So, so I don't see. I mean, really charge the atmosphere with a like a small Tesla coil or something. I'm sure that. Oh yeah, that's been tried. The Tesla coil. KD Stafford's got one that he made. I've seen several people use Tesla coils. I mean, they've got now what they call an EM pump, which puts out an EMF field. Hello, Amanda. Welcome in. We have. Oh, awesome! Tuning in from Japan. So we have what they call an EM pump, which puts out an EMF field that they can draw from to gain energy from. We use that in investigations to try to figure out what's in somebody's house. And that's like your old houses with your high EMFs. Yeah, they are they are a little overwhelming. And that's the next point I'm going to bring up is high EMFs in a house. your older houses aren't grounded with electricity. So there's no ground. So you've got a lot of static going through houses. They've used that old coating wire, and it brings up a lot of EMF into houses. And when you get a high EMF field in a house, it causes anything from paranoia, makes you sick. It can cause a rash, nausea, vomiting. So, and then we get calls like that for paranormal, and we go into a house, and the house is charged with EMF because of their electricity being there. They don't have the proper ground wires or nothing in there. I work at a school as a head of maintenance, and the school's over 100 years old. Nothing is grounded in that school. I mean, there is static that flows through that building left and right. Even in the gymnasium that was built in 53, there's no grounds. And I went up on a scissor lift and touched the scoreboard, and I got shocked, and it was enough to set the buzzer off to the scoreboard. So that's how much EMF that school has got charged in there, and it's still got the old breaker boxes with the screw and fuses. So that's a little bit about EMF. We did a case in Indiana where the EMF fields ended up being high in the building because it was an old factory at one time and they just converted it over to an apartment building. Well, we got called in because the girl got her kids taken away and she was blaming the paranormal activity. Well, we walked in there and our EMF meters just went off the charts when we were doing a baseline. We couldn't even get a definitive EMF if it was paranormal. And she wanted us to do a cleansing, and I was like, "There's nothing to cleanse here. You just got a bunch of high EMF." The circuit breaker for their apartment was actually in their kitchen, and that breaker box was just off the charts through the whole bedrooms, everything. And so she wanted us to sign a piece of paper and write a statement out that it was paranormal activity that caused her kids to get taken away, and you can't. That does not stand up in a court of law. You can't prove EMF had your kids taken away. So, welcome in, Fred. so, so we're gonna get ready to wrap up here. I've got a meeting right after this, so I'm cutting my show short. Usually, I do 2 hours to fill in the next spot, but we've got a meeting next. So, um, even had an attachment from one, but I keep trucking. It's my passion. Don't get me wrong; it's no joke, but I get their story out. Yeah, exactly, and that's a lot of them want their stories told, and that's why we're there. I don't consider myself a paranormal investigator. I consider myself a paranormal researcher. I'm out doing the research, the legwork on properties, and the research on the paranormal. But we're going to get ready to wrap up here. I thank you all for joining me tonight, and we will be back next Friday.